All right.
All right. So, I can't find you. Let me think.
Love your background. Just so much stuff there. Pretty cool. How much work did you put into this?
all this stuff?
Yes.
A lot.
I mean, to be so neatly organized and everything.
Well, yeah. I mean, so I started thinking about doing video versions of the podcast and having guests on, and then I realized. So I'm sitting in my basement here in Toronto, right? And I decided I should put up some nice things for the background, right? So I've got my my books and some things I've 3D printed, some old Macs. I've got a Jacques Plante mask over there, some old hockey gloves from the back in the day when they were leather, So yeah,
it's nuts, right? Like during the pandemic. Remember when I think people got much better now, but the first days when everyone was on lockdown, people like doing all kinds of backgrounds.
Yeah.
Now I feel like you probably need to hire like a consultant to organize your background and stuff.
Well, this is the thing. People were judging by the books. So I've put like the Big Nerd Ranch books over here, and I have the old SE30 over on this side, and some of my nice Lego that I haven't done, kind of thing. And my 3D printer, of course, and my 3D bust that I made with my iPad. So lots of fun things to keep you busy. I also bought some musical instruments because I used to play with music with my friends, and we can't do that anymore either.
Yeah,
not for a while anyway.
Yeah, well, I don't know. So are you getting out of the house often?
My wife does most of the shopping and stuff, so she's out every day, and me, I'm working from home, so. And I don't mind staying here. I've gone to see a few movies at the theater with my son. We have a tech, like a sci-fi podcast we do. So we've been out to see some Marvel movies and that kind of stuff. But he lives in Mississauga, so we get to go to the IMAX over there, and there's like 20 people in the entire theater because the night we go, it's not on the first night.
That's close to IKEA there, right? Is that like a huge intersection? No?
He's at Winston Churchill and
I see.
I think you're thinking of the Queensway Theater, maybe. The one on the off the highway there? There's an I think, is that an IMAX? I don't think I see an IMAX. Or maybe
like a huge screen like this, right? It's all like, you cannot see the edges there when you're watching the movie.
Yeah. Well, it's it's not like the one downtown. I like the one at the Scotiabank, or not called Scotiabank. Yeah, it's Scotiabank Theater now, I think, right? It used to be called Paramount back in the day. But they're closing that one down. Yep. Hey, everybody, welcome to another episode of the More Than Just Code podcast. My name is Tim Mitra. I am in Toronto, Ontario, and I'm also joined in Toronto, I believe, by Roustem Karimov. Yes. So how are you doing?
Hey, Tim, I'm doing good.
Yeah.
Can't really complain. I mean, I think with the pandemic and everything else, I don't know. I feel we're all like in the same boat.
Yeah, definitely. So, for those of you driving at home, you may not know that Roustem is the founder, one of the founders of Agilebits, and they're the makers of 1Password. And we constantly talk about 1Password on our show because we think it's great and we think people should protect their data. And you guys are doing a great service. And actually, I don't know, it's funny. I was trying to think today. I should have gone back to my other computer and try and realize when I first started using 1Password, because I'm pretty sure. I know I bought it when it was on the iPhone. So that would be what? I guess the iPhone came out 2007, right? So yeah, I'm trying to think because I'm pretty sure I was a 1Password user long before or even before I became an iOS developer, because I was a Mac consultant back in the day, part of the Apple Consultant Network. And I think I was at a conference or a sort of a seminar held by Apple. And I was sitting next to a couple of my friends from Toronto who are also Apple consultants. And they said, oh, you got to get this 1Password thing. It's great. And so I think that's how I ended up with the app on at least on my phone. And then I've definitely brought the Mac app. So I'm an early user of 1Password.
Yeah, it was only the Mac app at the beginning, right?
Yeah.
We didn't really have plans for anything else.
Well, we'll get into that in a minute, because I went back and I watched your talk this morning again from when I first met you. Actually, it was probably not like face to face, but the first time I ever saw you or knew of you was at NS North in 2014.
That was a very important conference in many ways.
For you, yeah.
For 1Password.
For 1Password. Oh, really? Okay.
Oh, yes, that was like life-changing.
Really? Okay, we'll have to get into that in a minute. So, yeah, so I mean, I've been on long, I mean, I have 1,800 different logins and things saved on there. I keep my passport information in there, so my wife's as well as I just put my Ontario health card information, because now we need to prove that we've been vaccinated, right, and everything like that. I use 1Password is like, of all the authenticator apps I have out there, I'm sorry, don't mean to push 1Password on everybody, but I'm a fan, right? So, and I love it for the two-factor authentication. I use that. I'd prefer to use that over Google or Microsoft Authenticator, because at least with 1Password, especially now that you have the subscription model, I can use it on the web, right? So I can always have access to it. It's the first thing I put on any device. Sorry, didn't mean to interrupt you.
No. With the extension, it certainly makes it so much easier. Like, I don't even have to copy. I think we used to copy it to the clipboard, and then you could paste the 2FA code when you sign in. But the new extension, it even fills it for you, so you don't have to do anything. Really.
Well, I mean, I have people who follow me know I have like 200 something WordPress websites. And so on most of the ones that are important to me, I'm using two-factor authentication there too, right? And so what's nice is I use the 1Password to do the autofill, and then whatever I have in the clipboard, if I'm copying a link or something, it puts it aside, grabs the two-factor authentication code, puts it in, and then I have to wait 30 seconds or whatever, and then it switches back what was in the pasteboard before. So it's nice that it doesn't break my flow that way, right? I have to go back and copy the thing again. So that's great. Super useful. But I want to get into some of the things that you talked about in that conversation or the talk you did about sort of how you got into this. Because I mean, the whole purpose of our podcast is to talk about developers and how we do these kind of things. And lately I've been having people on that, one, I'm fans of, but also who have actually made a decent go of being either first of an indie developer, and then now in your case growing into a major company, right? So and just to recap, the conversation or the talk was 42 was the subject of it. And you said in the talk that you had, at the time, this is 2014, you had 42 employees, right? Which was kind of plus the Douglas Adams thing.
I was 42 years old as well.
And you were 42, yeah. Well, it was a while ago, almost 8 years ago, I guess, right? So yeah. So why don't you tell us about, to give us a recap of yourself and where you come from, and because it's interesting, some of the parallels. You talked about your life in the Soviet Union and how different life was back then and to where you are today. And that you guys thought that the Soviet team had won the 72 series, Canada-Russia series.
I swear that what we were taught in school.
We were taught the same thing.
That was an interesting talk, to be honest. I wish I gave more talks, because back now that I look at it, it was so, I don't really like looking at it. I didn't feel it was very well rehearsed or anything else. So I wish I would give a better presentation there, but I thought the slides that Dan helped me to design, they were pretty good. I like the slides. A lot of things changed since 2014, I guess, when I gave the talk. So you want to start there, or you want to start earlier?
We can. I mean, it's up to you. We can start. We can start with the recapping. Well, first of all, let's talk about. You said NS North 2014 was a significant time for you at 1Password Agilebits, I guess. So why don't you fill us in on that?
Yeah. So at that time, we were around 40 people. So the company was fairly small. We did. I guess we worked on 1Password we started 1Password around 2006, right? So it's been quite a run. But what changed in 2014? I think our CEO Jeff Shiner just came to me. I think it was the first day or second day of the conference, and he said, and he named the company that we really like, and like they were using 1Password that we know, and they said they're switching to one of our competitors. And the main reason is because we didn't have any business features there.
Oh, really? Okay.
Right. And we kind of heard that before. And to be honest, like at that time, we had some companies buying the licenses for employees. Like we would have, some companies buying like 100 licenses for employees, things like that. But they're all like personal licenses, right? Because 1Password was pretty much a personal, like single user product. Right, you couldn't even like if you do the family sharing, like you couldn't do that anything like that. So, and I don't know, just that company, I guess that just something triggered inside, and we're like, we really need to build that product, right? So, and that's how we kind of spent the rest of the conference, just thinking how we can make a business side, like business offering for 1Password.
Right.
And that's when it all started, and I think we launched it in 2016, right?
Was that the business, the multi-user business?
1Password Teams, 1Password Business.
Oh, Teams, right? Yeah.
That's when it started, and then in the beginning, it didn't really nothing. Like we're so excited about this launch. I remember we decided we thought we're not sure we can handle the traffic. Right, when we're building, it's like this thing is so awesome. Like everyone in the world will want it. So we actually built a sign-up system where like you sign up and it doesn't give you access. It's like in the future we'll let you in, right? Because we're like afraid that so many people will sign up. And then we launched, and nothing really happened. Like, a few people signed up, but there was nowhere close to what we were expecting at the time. So it actually took us maybe 2-3 years to get to somewhere like where it became pretty successful.
Yeah, I was going to say, I recall that there was I remember the Teams thing came out. I think there might have been a beta or something, or people could sign up early, get early access to it kind of thing. Yeah. And, some of my friends here at Taco, Carl, and a few other people I know, they kind of jumped on it initially. I have a family account because, for me, I'm a small company. Didn't make sense for me. But now that you've turned the Teams version into a sort of a family version, I think with 5 accounts or 5 slots, I guess, right? That's what I use. And so my 2 grandsons each have an account. I have an account. My wife has an account, kind of thing. And then I'll have the one master sort of key, I guess, right? So plus you can share common passwords.
And in the end, it turned out that quite a few businesses need this, like pretty much every business. Not only individual customers need this solution, but businesses need this as well. So I think we recently announced that we have about 100,000 businesses using 1Password.
Nice, cool.
That's and with that came a ton of changes, obviously, to the company, the investment, and quite a bit of growth there as well.
And that's multi-platform too, because you're initially, I think you were, when I was, I guess around the mobile time, you just had started doing Android. So you had Android, iOS. Now you're doing Windows as well, right?
Well, in the beginning it was Mac, right? Because Dave and I, we just switched to Mac in 2015, I think we bought our first Mac, the PowerBook. Like, remember Tiger came out, and I remember like Steve Jobs presenting Tiger, and I think switched to Intel as well, right? Switched to Intel. And I don't know, it just got us excited. Dave bought his first Mac, and then somehow I couldn't resist, so I bought mine. And we did Java development at the time. We did Java consulting for several years, and the Java did not run on Macs at all. Like, it would run, but it was so slow.
Really?
Right. And we found this new framework called Ruby on Rails.
Oh, Ruby, yeah.
HH was doing the presentation with Ruby on Rails and TextMate. And we're like, wow, Ruby on Rails is so much better than any enterprise Java beans stuff that we used to do. Right? You could build, like, you could build the online e-commerce site in, a day, right?
Right.
Whereas, like, it would take you 2 weeks to launch like WebSphere or WebLogic, stuff like that. Shopify, I think, started around the same time, right? Snow Devil, I think they used to sell snowboards.
Oh yeah,
that was their first like idea. They would set up the website and sell the snowboards, like snow equipment. But then they realized that it's actually the e-commerce that they built, the solution that they built actually has a lot more value. So they basically started Shopify.
Pivoted to that, yeah. Cool.
Yeah, and Dave and I, we were like really excited about Ruby on Rails. So we decided to quit Java and do Ruby on Rails development and build like e-commerce websites for everyone, right? So
at the time, were you like, I know that Agilebits, 1Password is sort of your successful piece, but at the time when you were developing that, you and Dave, you were just a couple of guys, right? And was it a viable thing, or were you making a living at it, or what was the situation at the time? Like making a change from one software to another, like if you're small and agile.
Java would pay really well, right? Java paid really well. You could get like the rates are pretty high. They're probably still pretty high, like if you do Java development. Ruby on Rails, I think we just dabbled. Like, we were so excited about how much easier and faster and more efficient, like, you can build any e-commerce site. And so we tried to reach out and find the customers. And we also tried to build our own, like a few projects, basically, that we were really excited. None of them really worked out. And then 1Password was basically a side project that because we just switched to Mac, and, we wanted to build this tool for ourselves. I think 4 weeks, we had no idea how to use like Objective-C. I remember picking up one of the books from the Beginner branch.
Yeah, Beginner branch, yeah.
Right, so I'm like writing this stuff, trying to figure out Objective-C. Still love Objective-C, to be honest, like such a good language. And also, if you remember, we really wanted to have the browser integration, but I don't think there was like much in terms of, I think Firefox was the only thing that would support that extensions. But I think you're right, you used to write them like in C and XML, right? You remember Zool? I'm not sure. Like, there was a special language to design the UI, like XML based, and then you write actually in C, the extension itself.
Right.
Later we switched to JavaScript, right? And Safari did not have anything at all. But people used to develop, like, there were a few people that built Safari, quote unquote, extensions using the symbol, something that would swizzle the Objective-C code, because Safari was written in Objective-C. So you would just basically load something into the Safari process and replace some calls with your calls. Okay. Right. Wolf French wrote, I think, Simple. He also organized C4 later.
Okay. Oh, yeah, that's right.
Conferences in Chicago. So anyway, so it was the complete hack. So basically, it was a complete hack. And then we didn't want to do any encryption at the time. So we found that Mac OS we still don't want to do any encryption ourselves. We don't want to build any encryption ourselves. But so macOS had the keychain, if you remember.
Right. Yeah.
And there was an API for the keychain, so you would like. So 1Password, what the very first version of 1Password that would do, it would just actually create the brand new keychain on macOS, and it would use it would just massage some of the data into the keychain, because it allowed you to put some of there was 2 or 3 fields there that you could fill, and we just store them there, so we don't have to do any encryption. All the locking was done, when computer locks, it will lock the keychain, and then you unlock keychain. So
yeah, could you see the 1Password keychain if you went to the Keychain Access application?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So it was a very lazy way of doing this stuff, but it's kind of fun. And then also, I think .Mac used to sync it, so you could get syncing for free, but there was something wrong with it, so it would actually start breaking our items. I don't know. It would you would lose some data during the sync, right? So eventually we actually had to go and build our own format.
Okay. And did you look, so at the time I joined up, you guys were using Dropbox for syncing. Is that something that did Dropbox help with that?
I think Dropbox appeared about the same time, and we're like, hey, we could actually use Dropbox. Again, we didn't really want to build the sync service or anything else, right? So we could use Dropbox. You have a folder on this Mac, you have a folder on another Mac, and then we actually designed 1Password that way that every item would be its own file, so that it's very easy for Dropbox. Once you add a file or change the file, just syncing is much easier for Dropbox.
Right.
So that worked for a while. Pretty lazy way of doing this stuff.
Well, it's funny, I have a couple of older servers here that I run just, for some old iTunes syncing and stuff like that. But I have behind me, I have a couple of old X servers, and I have a Mac Mini, and I think I'm running something like Snow Leopard on it, maybe.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and I still have my 1Password in there, and so when I need to log into a service or whatever, it's funny because I think about a month ago I was in there doing something, and I went, oh, I have to put this password in. It doesn't exist in that particular version, right? So I had to enter a new password for the first time in so many years, right? So because it doesn't sync with the new stuff, right?
I tried to resurrect my old very first PowerBook, but it doesn't boot.
Oh.
So that's unfortunate. I have it on the shelf there somewhere. There's on the shelf here. But
which PowerBook is it?
I think it's PowerBook G4. G4. The very first one that Dave and I bought.
Yeah, if it doesn't boot, it's probably the parameter RAM battery, because I have a couple of I have the titanium G4s, and they do that. If the battery's sick, it won't boot, but if you unplug it, it will boot, which is really strange. But you have to take the CD-ROM drive.
Just remove the battery?
Yeah, the old CMOS battery. Yeah, it's really.
Oh, I should try that.
Yeah, I have a couple here because it's funny. I had one. I lent to a friend, titanium G4, right? I had it since almost the very beginning. Lent it to a friend. He brought it back to me a couple of years later, and it won't boot. I'm like, what's this? It doesn't boot. So I went on eBay for $40 and bought another one that had a bad screen, because I knew I had an extra screen here, right? So I brought it home. It boots up. Now it's been 2 years ago, and then the other day I was thinking about it. I went to fire them up. My original one that wouldn't boot now boots, and the one that I bought off eBay won't boot. So it's like, but anyway, when I was looking it up the other day, I realized that somebody posted on iFixit, if you unplug the battery, then it will boot. So, or I'm going to see if I can fix the battery.
I should try that. That's certainly possible. It's not like with new laptops. You can't really unplug the battery.
Well, you can't reset the was it the SMC chip? There's a new system control management chip that you can reset if your Mac won't boot. But on those ones, they're so old, they don't even have that chip. So that's they used to boot. They used to have, if the power was clean or something like that, it would boot. But otherwise, no, it won't. So it's a funny thing about those. Like some laptops, if you took them apart and you put them back together again, you had to plug in the AC adapter to reset the circuits. Although if you didn't do that, you would spend hours trying to pull your hair out going, why won't this Mac boot? The battery's got charge, et cetera, just weird the way the power circuiting was set up. Anyway.
Yeah.
Let's get back to some of your, so back in your origin story, you talk about going to university in Soviet Union, and some of the food lines and some of that. It's funny. I noticed you were saying things in the talk that people didn't laugh, but I actually thought some of them were. I think you were trying to make jokes, and people. I have a friend who's also from Soviet Union. He's always making jokes about you have to line up for everything, but.
Yes, and that was actually true. You see the line, you just stay there first. First, you get into the line first, and then you figure out what it's about.
Right. Yeah.
That was the rule.
Yeah. Crazy. So yeah. Anyway, what I want to tell you about the 72 Summit series as well. That's what it was called. I just remembered that now. Is that I actually went to the game in Toronto with my father. So. We lost that game, by the way.
You don't look that old.
Yeah, I am that old, but we lost that game. I think it was one of the games we lost. I think we lost most of the games in Canada, if I'm not mistaken, right? Because they weren't expecting the Soviet team to be so good. I mean, to be honest with you, I wear number 20 on my sweater. I'm a goaltender, right? So when I was playing, my team came to me one day and they said, what number do you want on your sweater? And they're thinking I'm going to say 20. Dryden's I'm a big Dryden fan, so they would say 29 or 35 or 31, whatever. But I said no, I want number 20. And they looked at me like, why would you want number 20 on your sweater? I said that's because that's Tretchak's number, right? I became a huge Tretchak fan in that.
I saw him playing on TV, nice. Right? So.
Nice. Well, yeah. I saw him play too, but I didn't realize he was amazing, that good. He was against Tony Esposito. I was upset because I wanted to see Ken Dryden play myself, right? But I didn't get to see it that night anyway. Yeah, it's cool. So small world. We both enjoy the same game from a different perspective. Yeah. All right. So tell us a little bit about your background. Like you grew up in the Soviet Union, went to school there, went to university there.
Yeah, there's really not much to say, to be honest. Like I went to school. I went to school a bit earlier than most kids. I think my mom was working in the school, so she just signed me up like a year sooner. So
nice, yeah.
I finished school when I was 16, because we only had you start at 7 and 10 years, right? So I started at 6, I finished at 16. And somehow I really I wanted to go to math. I was pretty good at math. I didn't really like it, to be honest. And then somehow the university just started the computer science program or software engineering. I don't know, one of those. And I was pretty excited about that, so I signed up. We didn't really have that many computers there, so most of the stuff was done on paper.
Right. Interesting.
But I really enjoyed it. I remember just pestering my professor to give me more work, right? And it was 5 years. So basically, I think I found some side job on the second year. So I was doing something my own, I guess. I think they just gave me a computer so that, to get rid of me or something. So I don't think I was doing anything.
Yeah.
I don't think I was doing anything useful, but I just spent all my time there.
Cool.
And I had I was paid, I think, I was paid for doing some computer programming in grades, in the third year or fourth year. So.
So how did you end up in Canada? How did you end up meeting Dave?
To be honest, a group of us, when we started at university, we always were really excited about going to North America. But it was, you have to see from, it seems like it's impossible, right? I think today with the internet and everything else, it's pretty easy to see how you can do this stuff. But back when we started, I don't think there was internet at the time, right? So you don't really get much info, right? You have no idea how people how is it possible to, let's say, move somewhere to another country? So it was really felt like something that is completely out of reach, right? Plus finance, like it requires quite a bit of, financial investment too, right? It's not free to move somewhere. So I think financial crisis hit in 1998 in Russia.
Right.
So I was actually at that time I was doing I had a steady job at the time, and I think I was getting paid about $200 a month. Our salaries were like pretty high compared to average, what people would get on average there. So it's pretty good. But then when financial crisis hit, I think all my savings were like cut in 10 times. So let's say if I had like $2,000, now I'm back to $200 or something like that.
Right.
And back then I remember someone just mentioned like, hey, why don't you move like to US? Why don't you just emigrate, right? And a person who I don't really know that well just uttered something, and it just stuck in my head, right? So I decided to look for a way to move, and then we had internet at the time, so I started reading. People were posting about how they found a job and stuff. So I think I probably sent like 1,000 resumes everywhere. Obviously, I had no idea what I'm doing, but what helped me was the Y2K problem, I think, because people needed more developers, right? And I had a few calls. I think my first call was from UK. I had some Delphi experience, and they really were looking for like Delphi people. But my English was probably absolutely awful. So it didn't really go anywhere. And then there was a company in US called Mosaic. I think they probably still exist, but Mosaic, they did like, at that time, they were bringing like people just by thousands to US, right? So I think they would just, I don't know, interview people and bring them in, and then they would just send them somewhere. So basically they had a ton of clients there. It's like H1, it's basically H1B factory or something like that. They would give a ton of people on H1B visas. And then there was also another company that basically they sent people to Moscow, and they did like interviews and tests on C++, I believe, right? And so I flew there, I did the tests, stuff like that, and they offered me a job here in Canada in Waterloo.
Nice, yeah.
So I had basically, at some point I had two offers, one from US, from Mosaic, and another one from Descartes Systems Group in Waterloo.
Right, okay.
So I don't know, I wasn't sure, and like Waterloo seems like something I could see, at least I could. And Mosaic, you had no idea where you would go, right? So there was a lot of uncertainty there, I guess. So I went to Waterloo. That was a pretty cool experience. Just everything is different. Like you fly to another country. You've never been outside your country, right? You fly to another country. Like I still remember I brought like electric plug or something. I don't know. I couldn't believe that people would have like a different electric plugs in another country.
Oh, really? Wow.
I don't know why, but it was crazy.
Yeah. How old were you then when you did this?
I was pretty old. I was 27, right?
Okay.
That was 1999. Yeah, 1999. So I was 27. It was pretty awesome. So we celebrate year 2000 here in Waterloo. I remember walking like uptown Waterloo there with friends. Right. So yeah, it's a good experience. I really enjoyed that time.
Well, thanks for something good came out of the Y2K bug, I guess, right? I remember I was working in the IT at the time too, and I thought it was a big fuss about nothing really, but who knew? I mean, like you were sitting there on December 31st waiting for the world to come to an end. I read that.
Well, you see, the problem is like if you didn't work hard enough, then something bad might have happened, right? And if you work hard enough, then nothing happened, and people say like it's not a big deal.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah, there was a lot of work. I mean, people don't. Most people, I guess, we talk to these days weren't old enough to be involved in it, and it was a lot of work. I remember like a lot of paperwork, and I was working for a public company at the time, so we had to make sure everything was in order, and we owned a number of different systems, and I wasn't involved in setting those systems up, so who knew what was going to happen, right? And I was in electronic prepress, which doesn't sound like much, but when you make your living, with things that plug into the wall and computers and things like that, you want to make sure that they're going to work, right? So, and they're all written by developers, which you and I both know. Sometimes a developer takes a shortcut, and maybe they don't put encryption in their software.
It's hard to imagine, but it to be honest, like today we have everything is based on like internet connected computers, right? Back then it wasn't that bad, quote unquote bad.
No, it's true, but like I was playing with this SE30 behind me, which is from around a little bit just before that time. But when I plug it in and get it going and everything like that, you can put a floppy disk in it. You can hook a modem up to it. You can print on local talk, but it's an island, really. I can't open Safari on it. I can't try, unless I put an Ethernet card in the thing. I can't really go.
But like TLS, probably all the standards are different now, right?
Yeah, it's completely different. And the thing about it is like all the older computers, they don't understand HTTPS either, right? So there's ways to get around that. But like, the whole world now runs on HTTPS pretty much. If your browser doesn't understand the protocol, there's not much you can do about it. Like all the old classic Mac stuff doesn't work on the internet, right? So what we're doing, in case people are curious, I mentioned this before on the podcast, but you can run a Raspberry Pi that will deliver, it'll basically create a website that you can load up on the older browsers as images, right? And you remember the old image map stuff. You tap on a button, you're actually tapping on an image. It goes to the Raspberry Pi. The Raspberry Pi makes a request, updates the page, and sends you back a refreshed image. So it's like fooling you into thinking you're on the internet. You are, essentially, but like how else are you going to do it? You can't, you need the Pi to be the proxy server for your older Macs, right?
I still remember like there was there's a way to browse internet by email. Remember, you send like URL request to some email address, and then sometime later you get like an email with the source with the page.
Really? And you could render it in your browser. Yeah. I remember like
there's not much rendering. It was pretty much text, right? So
yeah, that's true. That's true.
Like no CSS or anything else.
Yeah, it's funny. Like in '93, I think I got on the internet around '93 or so. It was just after you spent a few years on AOL and eWorld and CompuServe and things like that, and you were just looking at bulletin board information. And Mosaic was, I think, one of the first browsers, Netscape and that kind of stuff. And I was telling people I remember doing a search like on, it wasn't Google, it was Lycos or something like that, or
Lycos, yeah.
Alta Vista, I think.
Alta Vista.
Yeah, and I remember searching for something, and it would say results from 600,000 websites.
Yeah,
pretty small, but yeah. And it was like to get a Mac Macs were really bad at connecting to the internet initially. You had to run a TCP/IP protocol in it, and that would, you basically, your modem would talk and you would get the TCP/IP and it would give you an IP address, and then you could, navigate around. And it was a very, very sort of convoluted system, but lots of fun. I mean, like you said, it opened up the world of information. I mean, that's the thing, right? So that's cool. So you're now in Waterloo, you're working in Waterloo, and how do you get from there to Agilebits?
So the company made a mistake. Well, not made a mistake. The company Waterloo, we used to use. They use their own proprietary systems. I don't even remember what they used to have, but at some point they sent me to the Java 1 conference.
Okay.
I think it was in 2000. Yeah, probably in 2000. Yeah, right. So that was like one of the biggest Java 1 conference in San Francisco. Right. So I went there, and there was so much hype, and I got so excited. I had no, I didn't know Java. I know very, very little there. So there's like so much stuff. I had no idea what I'm looking at even, right? So anyway, I got really excited about Java. Like Java is like, that's all I wanted. I wanted Java. So I spent like next months like studying Java and trying to code stuff. And the company's like, okay, so we're doing .NET client, something. I'm like, no, I don't want to do .NET. I want to do Java. So at that point, basically, a friend of mine said, like, you really should go do consulting. So I got some Java certifications as well, like certified Java developer and everything else. And so I started sending my resumes again. I got a contract. I think the first one was at IBM. So I get like, and then I kind of spent the next 2 years just doing contract-based development, which is actually a lot of fun in many ways, just because you kind of don't get stuck in doing the same thing, right? You do something for one company, then you basically forced to go find another contract and you do something else. And like the environment is completely different, the tools are different, the people are different. Like you have to basically adapt, and you learn a lot, right?
Yeah.
So I spent a few years like that, and then actually I met Dave on one of the contracts. He just left IBM to do consulting as well. So we worked on a short project with him, and then eventually we met with him later. We worked for a year or so at World Vision Canada. So we did some projects there, and that's when we used to do like enterprise Java beans with all the heavy Java stuff, enterprise Java stuff. And then I think we went to a conference in Las Vegas. There was a Spring framework. I think Ron Johnson basically was like very lightweight Java-based framework that could do everything that like you could do with enterprise Java, but much faster.
Right. Yeah.
So it's kind of precursor to Ruby on Rails, to our switch to Ruby on Rails. Right. So anyway, we started thinking about our own projects at the time. Like, why don't we just do something ourselves, like build some other projects, like our project. So,
right. And
eventually we got the Mac, and we had to quit Java and switch to Ruby on Rails.
Right. And it's interesting. It's interesting you said that you built basically 1Password for yourselves, like something so you could get away from having to manage passwords, I guess, right?
Yeah, and fill forms as well, right? Fill forms, because that's basically you do quite a bit when you do web development.
Right.
1Password. I'm not sure 1Password did that good today about this, but in the very first version, you could enter the form, save it completely, and then fill it again. So if you have like web page with like 50 fields, you could actually save them all in 1Password and then fill them back. I'm not sure the latest version of 1Password does it that well, because we kind of moved more to password management.
Right. Yeah.
But the very first one did. So we launched. When we did 1Password, because e-commerce was pretty easy for us, we just put it on sale as well.
Right.
And it actually, people, like the very first hour, someone bought it.
Really?
Wow. The very first hour, the person bought it. It was crazy to think about, like, someone can buy your software.
Right.
Because don't forget, our mental model was like, you do work for someone and you do consulting basically for someone and they pay you. Like, idea of selling software, it's kind of feel like it's very hard, right?
Yeah,
people
for sure.
Buy, and then I think the price was like $14 or something like that.
Right.
So how many copies do you need to sell to live on that, right? So
a lot.
A lot. I remember we did Maxot later. Brian Ball ran the Maxot website, and they did like daily deals, right? It was very popular at the time, and then I think we sold like 100 copies or something of 1Password in one day.
Nice, yeah.
And Brian Ball like, wow, that's like very impressive. And Dave's like, one day we're going to sell, like every day we're going to sell like at least 100 copies. I'm like, he's crazy. Like, that's too much. That's not going to happen, right? But yeah, eventually kind of happened, right? You basically, what you do, right? You have like an email or notification saying like someone bought your software, right? And then like you're very excited and you're getting all these emails. And at some point you're like, you know what? There's too many emails. You just turn it off, right?
Right.
So
Yeah.
basically, you kind of get to the next level.
So in those early days, you were selling electronic copies, like people were downloading off the internet, or was there did you ever get into putting it on a disc or something and sending it out, or?
No. That would be too expensive.
Oh, right? This is e-commerce, right? You said like this is.
This e-commerce, yeah. So that was what 2016.
Okay, yeah.
People use internet at the time. So I think there are a couple of like Mac Update and Mac Tracker were like websites that are very popular.
Yeah.
Mac Rumors, but Mac Rumors basically.
Did you use Kaji or something like that to do the financial part of it, or how did you do the financial gateway?
Kaji had like 10%. I think they charged 10%, and for us, like that's a lot of money. So we actually did not want to do Kaji. We built our own based on PayPal, and then I think to check out. That was one of the early ones. Was to check out. I think they charge much less, right? You have to do more work, but they charge much less. So we felt like in the long run, it's going to pay off. Eventually, we got the merchant account at TD Bank. That took us like 6 months to get it. I don't know, very long time. And we had our own web store running on that. And then one day, we have a huge number of orders, like people just buying 1Password like crazy. And we're like so excited.
This is still on the Mac though. We haven't even done iOS yet, right?
No, that was much later. Oh. I'm just saying like what's happened, like evolution of our web store, right? So people are like buying it. And then we realized that it's actually we learned that there's a way to kind of clean the credit card. So let's say you steal a large number of credit card numbers and you're not sure if like most of them like probably will not work. So you find a store and you try to buy something very inexpensive. Yeah. Right. And then see if the credit card passes. So now you basically like you kind of filter your list, right? So now you have like list the credit cards that really work. Right. And so someone was doing that to us. And then obviously it was not great, right? Because what you get back people saying I didn't purchase it. And then you return the money and then you return like, I think it's $25 charge back on each one.
Right. Oh.
Right. So we had to basically go and figure out like how to block him. There's like, it was cat and mouse game for like a few days actually, really.
Wow.
Right. And then, so that kind of forced us to, eventually we closed the merchant account and I think we went to Stripe or something. Yeah, probably to Stripe.
Yeah, to get somebody else to handle the money. Like, I guess that's the same. I mean, we talk about this a lot on the podcast too. And I know from having to handle credit cards myself that, I never wanted to do it online because of the whole PCI thing. You don't want to ever get fined for that because the fines are crazy, right? But the you want someone else to handle. So when Apple came along and said they'll run the iOS store and I don't have to do anything, I just have to hand over 30% and whatever, I thought that was great. Apple's going to handle the money. I'll just walk away, right? So what do you think about I don't want to get into a big debate about the App Store.
I agree. I think there was another story probably much earlier where we learned one lesson. Before the Mac, we tried to build software for Palm.
Okay. Yes. Right.
Remember Palm, like the first mobile phones, and then I actually built my own app for Palm and tried to sell it. And then most of the stores they would actually charge 60%, or maybe more. Actually, might be even more, right? So if you want to sell to them, they would take a huge cut. So we're like, here's the business model. We built our own store and we sell it through, and basically we'll charge much less. And every developer for like Palm will come to us because we'll only charge like 10% or something.
Yeah.
So we're so excited. Again, we built the store. Took us probably a few months, and we launched the store. And then after a year, we closed the store, I think it made like $20 for
Really?
us.
Wow.
Which we sold. And I remember emailing one of the popular Palm developer at the time saying, hey, we have this store, you'd be really excited. Like, instead of paying 60% there, we'll only charge you like very little, and come to us, like sell you up here, right? Upload, we have like everything set up. It's like his first answer was like, do you have a list of customers? Like, do you have,
yeah, you.
He was smart at the time. Right? He was smart at the time, because basically, yes, you could charge very little, but if you don't have any exposure and no one is buying it, like, you don't really get any revenue, right? So I think what Apple is like, the first place, there's a ton of exposure, right? Because you have a lot of customers looking at it, and compared to 60%, 30% is certainly very, very little, right?
True. Yeah.
So I think I still think it's a good deal. Actually, at some point, there was a period in like Agilebits live where Dave and I think we got burnout. There was some huge Mac release or something where basically we spent like a year rewriting entire 1Password from scratch, just because browser extensions had to be redone and something.
Right. Yeah.
Things did not work. Customers were yelling at us. People were like burned out completely. It was really tough. I think that's when my back got hurt as well. So basically, I spent like next year trying to fix it. Anyway, so we're like, you know what? We're done. Like, we're trying to reduce the work that we do. And web store is great. But one, you need to worry about it being up, right? So I still remember like 3 a.m. and then, your phone is like going off saying like the web store is down, right? So you need to wake up and try to figure out because, if it's down, nobody can buy 1Password.
And you're also serving the world too. You're not just serving like Canada, you're serving people in Europe and Asia and 24/7, right?
Plus updates, you need to do you need to keep this thing up. There's a new version of Rails that breaks like some things that now you need to rewrite your web app and stuff like that. So it's quite a bit of work to keep it up and running. So we're like, you know what, we're just going to close it and move everything to like Mac App Store and iOS Store. And just downsize. We want to downsize. I think Dave did a talk about this stuff at some point. Back then, we didn't have a CEO. Like Jeff did not join us yet, so Dave and I pretty much did like most of the stuff in the management. So yeah.
Well,
so
that's an interesting perspective too. Like, I think from, I went through some coaching back when I was an entrepreneur too, and when you're the guy, making the software and sweeping the floor and going to the bank and putting the money in the bank, there's a lot of work that's beyond what your actual main, unique skill is, right? So, you at some certain point you need, like, you get to the point where you need to hire employees, you need to hire, like, I think you said in the talk, you had to hire some better developers, to keep up with your design.
True.
And then eventually you get to the point where you have to hire a CEO and HR and all that kind of stuff, right?
Yeah, to be honest, I really like the context switching. I just get bored so quickly that I enjoyed being able to then just go from code to customer support to like marketing to just like system administration and stuff like that. So I think I had a lot of fun, but yeah, it certainly, it's, you get burned out at some point. Like, you can't really do that nonstop.
Yeah, I mean, so are you still doing code reviews? Are you still writing code, or what's your day look like now?
I mostly run around and complain about 1Password and things like that.
So I can bring my complaints to you then, I think, right?
Yes, please. Yes. I think we got, like, if we go back to 2019, back when we did the investment, we didn't have HR at the time. Pretty much every person working for 1Password outside Ontario was a contractor, like not a full-time employee without any benefits and stuff like that.
Okay.
We didn't have, our finance team was like 1.5 person. We didn't have a sales team. We didn't have, basically, marketing was, I think, still Dave writing his newsletter. That was pretty much it. So I basically, we had a lot of, like, pretty much our entire company was like customer support and developers and designers.
Right.
Right. But we got to the size where basically you really need like, people working for you. They want to have health benefits, especially in the US. Like Canadians are much better in this way, but in the sense, right, because we have a lot of things kind of covered by provincial insurance. But if you're in the US, like none of our US employees, the contractors had any health insurance.
Right.
So we actually, and we really wanted to do this, but someone has to, like, it's like it doesn't happen on its own, right? Someone has to do it. So we actually had to grow the HR team and the finance team. So basically, a lot of debt that we had, I think we did that in the next 2 years, like 2020, 2021.
Right. So you were originally remote because you were a couple of guys and small team, and then you opened, I think around 2014, you must have opened that office downtown. And then I guess you did okay there for a while, and now the pandemic's hit the last 18 months or so. You're back to being remote. Is everybody working from home still, or?
Yeah, well, we actually had like 3 offices we moved, like we changed our offices 3 times, right? I think Jeff and I, we went to Dropbox one. We were in San Francisco for maybe WWDC or something, and then got invited to Dropbox, and I went to Dropbox. We didn't have the office at the time, so we mostly spent time working like at home, or we would get at my house sometimes, or sometimes we would just go to like a hotel somewhere during the conference, right, and work there. But I remember being in a Dropbox office, and like that's really nice. You have people there. You have people working on like on things. I don't know. It just felt like I really wanted an office. So actually, you're right. We started our very first office in Toronto in the basement.
Mm-hmm.
I still remember people mooning at us through the window there because it happened a few times. I think there was a bar nearby.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Right. But I was like, that was my favorite office because it was so easy to get in and out, right? Just, you open the door and like 2 steps and you're in the office. And then it wasn't big enough, so we like upsized it, like upgraded a couple of times. And with the pandemic, we actually had to abandon it and sublease it. And now I think we have just really tiny office on Yonge Street. Okay. We'll need a new one, but everyone has used to working remotely right now.
So but you were working remote before the pandemic hit, or?
Oh yeah. Well, to be honest, even with the office, it was more of we call it like a clubhouse. So basically, people just go there because one of the things, like if you work remotely, we find that most of the work is done when you're actually at home.
Right.
And then when you go to the office, you spend most of the time talking to people. So you will not write code, and like it's hard to write code in the office because you need to catch up with so many people and just So usually we'd go there, catch up, would like figure things out, and then go back and work at home.
So how many people work at 1Password now, or Agilebits now?
I think just over 500 today.
Wow. Yeah, we were 42 in 2014. 8 years later, you're 500.
Well, 2014 changed everything because once we launched the business option, I think we needed a lot more people to support it, right? Because you have businesses that want phone support. I think someone on Hacker News, I think, was like, hey, to write a password manager, I could do it myself. Like, how many people do you need?
Right.
And I'm like, yeah, he's kind of right. You don't really need that many people. But then how many people do you need like to do SOC 2 type 2 report? Do you know? It's like it requires quite a bit of paperwork and everything else, right? Or how many people do you need to review all we're running this bug bounty program, right? To people finding like bugs in 1Password security bugs and stuff like that. And there's like a lot of submissions. So you need to person who would go and say, okay, this is a real issue and this is like really not an issue. So just things like that. And then you need an HR at some point, like you grow to the size where you need an HR and you need the finance team and everything else. Yeah. So I think we want to actually double in size next year or two.
Cool.
So just because, you don't want to be in the position where like, hey, there's a great opportunity there. You need to build the list of features that we have like in the background is quite big, right? So you don't want to kind of miss that and say, we didn't invest in this, right? And the opportunity is gone.
So let's talk about the next version. I think 1Password version 8 is coming, or it's out already, or what's the? You're telling me a little bit about that on Twitter.
I'm using it for over a year now.
Okay, well, you're an insider, right?
I'm an insider. It's actually been available for quite a while. So that's the story. There is basically we for a long time, because of the way 1Password was developed, every app was built separately, right? Because we had a Mac app, the Windows app was actually built by the very first version of the Windows app was built by a single person in Netherlands, and originally I didn't even like, why do we need the Windows app?
Right.
But the customers really wanted the Windows app, and we felt like people want the Windows app. We need to give them that option, right? So for a long time, the Windows app was more like a stepchild, really, right? Because Mac apps, like Dave and I were using Mac app. This is what that's where we invest all our time, energy, and everything else. And Mac and iOS, and then Windows is kind of, we have a team, people working on it. We have good people working on it, but they're like in their own space. So there's like there's some interaction, but nobody's like designing a new feature across all the apps, right? And then obviously the Linux app, we didn't have the Linux app as well,
right?
So, and I think if you look at our forums, that's like the longest thread there on our forums. I don't know.
Really?
A few hundred pages, really, people asking for the Linux app. Right? And we are explaining how you can run like wine and stuff like that and whatever. It's quite complicated. So when we started this, so at some point we decided like we have to change stuff, right? We have to build one app basically. And now it's, especially with the service, like it seems not fair that you charge the same amount, but if I'm using Windows, I'm getting a subpar experience compared to if I'm using Mac.
Right.
And also a lot of features that we wanted to do. So imagine you want to add a new feature to 1Password, right? So now you have to go and you have to coordinate through like 4 different teams, basically.
Right. Yeah.
How you're going to add it. You have to and then people are built, like if you're building it 4 times, no matter how well you specify it and describe it and everything else, there will be differences, right? It will look different. It will work different. Like my favorite example, like sorting, for example, sorting in Mac and Windows. In version 7, you actually get different results when you sort.
Oh, really?
Search,
okay.
Right?
Yeah.
Or when you search, you get different results when you search, just because you can search in so many different ways. So the idea was like we build a single core of 1Password, and then we'll make sure basically most of the features can build through this core, and then we use this core on all platforms.
Nice.
So we actually had like several different versions. I think we've been working on this for like a really long time, but it's really hard to do cross-platform software, to be honest. We actually had to throw away the code several times, and eventually we stopped on Rust, and Rust what allowed us to build like this single core that can be used across platforms.
Yeah. Cool.
And then we didn't have the Linux app, so Linux app seems like the easiest option, right? Because you build a brand new app. We kind of were scared to release it on Mac first, just because a full rewrite is hard. right? Fully, right? We did that.
Right.
We did that for 1Password before, and it is very painful. But we felt like we really needed it this time. So we started with Linux, where we didn't really have anything. So, and then Windows and Mac app should be available soon too. To be honest, I'm using the early access anyway.
Yeah, no, I just want to say, so I mean, like, I'm a Mac fanboy, as you know, but I mean, I also work in a corporation downtown, and the ratio of Windows users to Mac users it's like insignificant from the Mac point of view, right? So like the Windows market is so much bigger. Are you finding that's the case now that you have a Windows product?
I think for the business, 1Password business, yes. So obviously, again, it's very important to basically have support for pretty much every platform there, right?
Right. Yeah. Cool. Well, I mean, that sounds like the opportunity would be bigger too. Well, mind you, you're, like you said, you want to double your size, and I understand how you can have a big development team, but I think a lot of our listeners who are like a single person, maybe two people in a shop, they're not quite aware of what can happen there. So let me ask you. So yeah, so I have a different part of this show here where I talk about a little bit more about getting to know you individually. So if you're okay with that, we can ask you some questions that will sort of.
Yeah, I remember watching it with James Thompson. I'm like, I have no idea how to answer any of these questions. So I think it's going to be a really tough segment here.
Okay, well, I'm gonna mix it up too, right? Because I don't always ask the same ones, right? But I'll start with this one. This is maybe simple for you, and hopefully you've had time in the how long has 1Password or Agilebits been around? 15, 20 years?
Well, 2015, so that's going to be over 16 years, right?
16 years, okay.
16 years.
So let me ask you this: what is your motto?
My personal motto?
Yeah, your personal. Well, you can say your company motto if you want to. Your mission statement, if you will, or whatever. What makes you you?
Oh, for me, I usually put, like, I'm looking at my Slack description for the what I do, and it says I try new things. So I basically, as I said earlier, I get bored really quickly. So I need something new. That's what actually I really enjoyed. Basically with 1Password, because we had to switch so many different roles all the time. Now I find it's much harder because everywhere I go, there are people who actually do that much better than I used to do. So it's a bit of a challenge.
Yeah, true. Who are your heroes in real life? Who inspires you? Who do you admire?
Steve Jobs seems like a good answer, right? Because actually, Dave and we met Steve Jobs at WWDC.
Nice.
We did the presentation after he did the keynote, and then we had the presentation. It was very, very close. He just came out. There's a few people waiting in for the next stage, including us, and then he waved at us, and we waved him. It's pretty awesome.
That's cool.
And then I also been Dave and I think we've been at Macworld when he announced iPhone. Do you remember that?
I was there too, but I wasn't in the room. I was at the conference, and I remember driving down, saying to my wife, "I don't know, they're coming out with a phone. I don't know where they're going to go with that. That's crazy, you know." I hear that's what they're going to do.
Change the world.
It's me. I mean, my whole career changed because of the iPhone, right? So, which is great. What's your idea of perfect happiness?
Sorry, what?
What's your idea of perfect happiness?
Perfect happiness. That does not exist.
Okay. What makes you happy other than working and crazy trying things?
Just accomplishing something. Just seeing something. I think that's what attracted me to the software development in the first place. Just you have nothing, you can make something out of nothing, right? It's basically just. I think it still boggles my mind. It's basically you could imagine anything and make it happen.
Well, it's funny, people don't know, people know me. I basically studied art, right? And art is the same sort of thing. You're creating things out of nothing. You're making a statement from nothing, and now I'm using my iPad to create things that don't even really exist in real life, and recently I've gone to printing things on my 3D printer that, I thought of in my head, right? So yeah,
It's
I always say
interesting
that,
that you said that.
yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting that you said, because I think a lot of very good developers, they have the background in art.
Yeah.
I feel like more of a formal education, I'm not sure it really helps
Oh, it
that
doesn't.
much.
Having a formal art education doesn't help either, because.
No, I mean formal software engineering
Oh
education.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
But and then I just made me think of the book that one of my favorite books is The Art and Fear. Did you
Okay.
read that one?
No.
It's absolutely amazing. I have an audio book, and back when we were building 1Password for business, actually, I would listen to it a few times. It just pushes you. It's all about art, right? It's like, hey, you just need to do you just need to work every day. Just
Yeah.
basically, it doesn't really
Yeah.
often you don't even have to think about is it perfect or not, right? You just try to do something like every day, right? And like nonstop, even if you're like in a rut and you're not making any progress, right? Because that's how it actually felt when we were building 1Password for business, because like it's pretty tough going. And yeah, it's a great book.
And what's the name of the book?
It's called Art and Fear.
Art and Fear.
Observations on the perils and rewards of art making.
Cool. Yeah. No, I mean, yeah, like I said, I've even though I don't traditionally paint and sculpt like I used to when I was a student, but I still create things all the time. And I think that creating software is the same thing as that, right?
Yeah, I agree.
What's your most treasured possession?
I don't know. Really, I think there was I don't remember which book it was, but I really like what he said in the book, the author, that you should just approach life as if you don't really own anything, but you just basically taking care of it.
Oh.
Or as you live, right? And I think that makes, at least that for me, made a lot of things much easier, because when you possess something, now you're afraid that you're going to lose it, or you're going to damage it, or you're going to. So I feel like I just don't remember where it was said, but I really like that.
Cool.
And I think that made my life easier.
So you don't have to worry about things and.
Yeah. Yeah. It's basically they don't like in the end, like in the end, your life is like your time on earth is finite, and basically like thinking that you own it is like makes really no sense.
So what do you think, like, based on that, what's your goal in life? How do you want to be remembered? Like, what do you think people are going to remember about you? Like, I don't mean people in general, maybe just your family or whatever, but what do you think, what's your legacy?
I don't know. I don't think I worry about it that much. You look at the statues right now. You go at the city, like look at the statues or the statues that were removed in the United States and everything else. Like,
you can get canceled tomorrow. Yeah.
Yeah. Do you care if you have a statue somewhere? I feel like Sorry, not a great answer, but
well, so see, for me, my heroes are people like Leonardo da Vinci and Michelangelo, and Einstein, Picasso, and they're, because as I studied them, they're the people that they made a change, they made a dent in the world. They didn't make they didn't change life, they didn't whatever, but they had an impact, right? And I think that's, to me, I would like to be known as someone who had an impact on people and things and whatever. So, I mean, and it's kind of funny because you and I work in an ethereal thing. I mean, like tomorrow, the iPhone may be gone, the Mac may be gone, 1Password will be gone, you know,
Yeah.
and who will remember? I mean, like you and I were just reminiscing about Spring and Java and all those other tools back in the day, you know, like using TCP IP stacks to get on the internet, and all that's gone. Like the kids today, they think the little floppy disk icon is the save button, right?
Yeah, and then there's a theory that we all live in simulation, so
That's true. Yeah, the Matrix,
there's
right?
that as well, right?
It's funny. I heard you say that in your talk that you imagined a Matrix moment, and I remember being like 8 or 9 years old, thinking the same thing. Like, what if I'm lying in a hospital bed and I'm hooked up to a computer, and you're lying in a hospital bed in Soviet Union, and we're not even talking. Like, look at us now. We're actually not even in the same space, and we're having a conversation and a relationship, right? And it's all virtual, right? So I may not even be real. I may be a simulation. Who knows? All right. What's the scariest animal?
Scariest animal. I'm not sure if you follow Troy Hunt on Twitter.
I may have heard the name.
He's a security researcher. He owns this website called Have I Been Pwned?
Oh, yeah, yes, I do know him, yeah.
1Password actually uses that service to tell you if some of your passwords are compromised and stuff. But he lives in Australia, and sometimes he tweets the pictures of the animal world there, I guess.
Yeah.
They're all pretty scary, to be honest.
Yeah.
Like everything that he tweets, like the spiders, the snakes, even the kangaroos. Like kangaroos are pretty mean. I'm not sure
heard that.
If you saw the pictures there, like, and they could really because they jump so high, like they're really like very, very strong. So I don't know. I'm not sure if they're the scariest, but your question made me think of Troy Hunt and Australia. I'm like, I used to really want to go to Australia, but after looking at these pictures, I'm not sure I want to go.
Yeah,
to
you can go for a walk and get killed. Yeah, I know, just by petting a furry animal. You know, yeah, it's funny. Australia has really strange animals out there. Cool. All right. Well, here's the last question for you, and this is an easy one. And this question gets bigger every time I ask it. But Star Wars, Star Trek, Doctor Who, or Babylon 5?
Oh wow, good one. I really enjoyed Babylon 5. I should probably watch it. But my problem is like Babylon 5, they used to show it in Russia. So
really?
I only had like a Russian version of Babylon 5. I don't think I ever watched an episode in English.
Okay.
Star Trek, unfortunately, I never really got into it kind of escaped me, right? And then Star Wars was quite popular in Russia as well on bootleg not DVDs, bootleg VCR tapes.
Nice. Was it translated into Russian as well?
It was translated into Russian, but I think the story is like there's only one guy who was translating all of them, and so he would translate all the characters.
Oh, right? The voice. So one guy.
All the voices, like for everyone, like men, women,
Princess Leia, the whole bit.
yeah, the same guy, and also very monotone voice.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so you kind of have an idea what's happening, but none of the emotional stuff or anything else.
Right. But there wasn't much emotion in Star Wars to begin with, but all right, cool. And you're a big Douglas Adams fan too, I take it, right? From your talk?
Yeah, I love it. Yeah.
Cool. All right, cool. All right, well, so let's wrap up. So thanks for being on the show. And if people want to get in touch with you, where would they find you on the internet?
Probably the easiest place is on Twitter. Just my first name on Twitter, Roustem.
Yeah, that's where I find you all the time. That's where I found you this time too.
I'm trying to spend less time there, but it's not easy.
And what's new and exciting for Agilebits and for Roustem? What are you working on? What can you tell us? What can we look forward to?
Well, some very interesting big plans for the next year. I think the team is getting bigger. We spent a lot of time just building the team up, right? Really, because it takes time for people to gel together as well, right? But a lot of I think you already saw quite a few things this year. For example, like masked email. I'm not sure if you tried that feature. Like I signed up to Fastmail right away just because I looked at my Fastmail account. I probably have like 50 different masked emails there now. So much more convenient. The item sharing just came out a few weeks ago as well. And some pretty cool developer features. Well, probably shouldn't say anything else. Okay. Some pretty cool features coming early next year. Yes.
Okay, cool. Yeah, it's funny you mentioned the sharing thing. We talked about that on the show on our last episode when I had the two guys there, because I remember I tried the sharing the way it was before, and I think it was like there was a big warning came up said, "Listen, you're going to send this in the clear."
Yeah, it's an unencrypted JSON thing.
Yeah. So, and they didn't remember that, and because I remember I did it twice because I remember I only did it twice because I sent it to somebody I trust, and it was a very small.
Well, if you use iMessage, that works, right?
Yeah,
but I think, like if someone else using Android, so what do you do now, right? How do you securely share? But this feature is really, really nice because it may not be obvious, but it uses client-side encryption. So actually, the URL that you send to another person has the encryption key. Right. And then the server, like what we have, like we don't have any of the data, right, that you share. So you encrypt it before you send it to the server, and then the recipient actually decrypts it on their computer.
And it goes right into the application too. That's we were trying to talk about that, right? Like I have used it actually. I think I sent my sister a password or something like that recently, and it was great.
Yeah, and then you could set the time limits as well, and you could also confirm the email, right? So that makes it, well, it's not absolute security, but I think this is like, if the person doesn't use 1Password, that's the easiest way to do this.
Well, I mean, like, for me, like you, I've also had, I've had bad experiences with bad. I mean, the thing about it is the reason why the internet's the way it is today, and the reason why we need two-factor authentication is because there are all these evil people out there trying to get your credit card number, for example, like you mentioned earlier, right?
Yeah.
And I think it's very important. I always tell people they need to back up their data, but they also need to make sure they're using secure passwords. And one of my favorites, I haven't created a password in probably 5 years, because every time I just go into 1Password, make a new password, and I don't even use the iCloud one. I use 1Password.
Such a huge effort. Like, how do you even come up with a password?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. And I love the fact that you can go in, you can custom tailor the password to whatever the site requires. I mean, because everybody knows there's no standards on the internet today.
We started switching people to we call it smart password.
Okay.
So the idea is like 1Password actually tries to figure out what this website accepts. It works. I think it works really well on most sites. Like, actually, Apple started this special project on GitHub that keeps track of websites that basically they don't tell you what the rules are, but after you try to keep them in the password, like, it can only be like 8 characters or something, or it requires like something. So we actually have the website GitHub project with the rules. So every time we find a website that 1Password does not generate the password properly, or we actually add we figure out the rules and then we add it there.
Oh, nice. Okay, cool. Yeah.
But smart password, I think, is probably the best option right now, just because then it tries to find the most secure password for this site. And to think about it.
And just in case people are curious, like, I'm not being sponsored by Agilebits. I actually do love the software, and I recommend it to everybody I meet.
You should try the early access version and let me know what you think.
Yeah,
because to be honest,
I'd love to. Yeah,
I've been using for such a long time. I got used to it. And then you see, when you start using it, it's very, very early beta, right? So you go and you suffer through all the stuff that does not work. But now I'm probably just too used to it, to be honest, right? I'm like, I love it. I cannot go back to 1Password 7. It looks ugly. It's just slow. It's like there's so many. I see all the problems in 1Password 7 now.
Yeah.
So you should try 1Password 8 and let me know what you think.
Yeah, I'll have to give it a shot. I'll just definitely sign up. Folks, that's it for another week.
Downloads page. It's on our downloads page under the beta section. So
cool. All right.
Give it a try.
Yeah, maybe we'll get some people listening to the show to try that too. All right. Well, again, my name is Tim Mitra, TIMMITRA, on the Twitter machines where you'll find me. Until next time, we'll say goodbye. But before you go, if you're watching this on YouTube, please click the little button right down there and subscribe. All right. Thanks for your time, Roustem.
This has been another episode of the More Than Just Code podcast. If you want to find out more about the show, you can visit the More Than Just Code website at mtjc.fireside.fm. There you can find a summary and show notes of each episode. We list links to the apps, code, and news that we mentioned on the show. If you like the podcast, tell your friends, leave a comment on the website, or write a review on iTunes. And please recommend us in your favorite podcatcher. All of these things help others find out about the show. We really appreciate your help with spreading the word. We're also on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. We'd love to hear from you, so use the hashtag AskMTJC and we may mention you on the show. Friends of the show can also join us on the podcast Slack channel. Once again, the podcast Twitter account is at MTJC_podcast. Please consider supporting the show by pledging any amount on patreon.com/MTJC. Every dollar pledged helps a lot. Thanks for listening. We'll see you next time.
Pretty good. I started paying for YouTube subscription. It's actually much nicer because like you don't get the ads, and then you can watch the videos actually in the background. So
yeah, those ads are getting really annoying, especially if you like. I have a few people I watch all the time, and it's they'll get to a really good point, and then here's a commercial, right? But also my granddaughter's watching YouTube all the time. She watches her shows, and she's always complaining that the ads are running, and Grandma, come and get rid of this ad. So is it like that? Like sorry?
Sounds like you need the family YouTube account. I use the family YouTube accounts. Like, yeah, it's so much nicer. Like the experience because zero ads, right?
What is it? What does the family subscription cost? Right?
Blah, blah, blah. I think family plan is $18. Single user is 12.
Is that Canadian or US?
No, it's Canadian, I assume, because it's in Canada. So should be. I think should be Canadian. Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, Canadian, $18 Canadian. But yeah, I think it's like much better experience, certainly.
Yeah, I'm a huge YouTube fan. I probably should do that too. My wife watches YouTube all the time as well, so it's cool.
Yeah, because you're right. I didn't sign in, and then so many ads every few minutes.
Yeah, it's crazy. Cool.
Obviously, I'll be sitting home all the time anyway. I just went to a restaurant last week.
I've only been a couple of times.
Yeah, I saw you're 3 times vaccinated. I'm like, Tim cannot be that old that he gets like a third dose. Because Natalia's mom just got vaccinated, the booster like a few days ago.
Yeah, so what happened for me was a friend of mine lives in Oakville. He tweeted that he'd enrolled and signed up. And I said, how did you do that? Because I knew he's around my age too, right? And he said, I just went on, like, if you had 2 AstraZenecas, you qualify, right?
Yeah,
so Sunday morning, I looked around and I saw his tweet. Then he posted, I tried calling, Shoppers Drug Mart or Rexall, and no, we don't have any, no, I'll put you on the list and that kind of thing. And then he replied to my tweet again, and he said, go to the Ontario COVID-19 website. And I went there, and you can go and say, I want I don't care which pharmacy I go to, right? And I went there and I looked and I saw that they had some appointments for like Monday, right? And I went, oh, I wonder if they have some for today, right? So I went back and I said, I don't care where I go. And then so it sent me to MGH, which is Michael Garron Hospital Clinic, not at the hospital itself, which is East York Hospital, right? And it's an old Target up on Leaside, like an old Target, Target store. And they have the whole floor, and it's all set up. I booked. I could have, like, it was 11 o'clock in the morning. I could have got a shot at 11:05.
Nice.
So anyway, I said, okay, give me an hour to get there. So I went for noon, and yeah, I got, my arm was sore for a day, but it's a little sore now still. But yeah, so definitely, it's definitely something to do. And I know that I work with some people in California, and they were telling me that they have all had their 3rd shot already too.
That's what I see on Twitter. Yeah, a lot of people. Yeah, they easily get this stuff. There's no restrictions. So I guess they got it earlier anyway as well in US, right? I think Natalia and I we will be like 6 months. We'll be in December, so think we're looking for December to.
Did you do AstraZeneca or you did Pfizer and Moderna?
No, we get Pfizer and Moderna.
Okay, yeah. My wife did that one AstraZeneca, and then she did Moderna for the second one.
But Moderna hits so hard. It's
yeah, she was.
I was in bed for like 3 days.
Yeah, Carol was in bed too for a while too. But I've heard the same thing with Pfizer too. You didn't have a problem with Pfizer first time?
No, I didn't even notice it.
Really? Interesting. Yeah, it's interesting coming from different countries. It's funny. I was going to tell you earlier that my father came to similar way. He came to Canada. They actually did interviews at Pearson Airport. Right.
Oh wow.
Yeah. So he was an engineer.
Well, that was a long time ago.
66, yeah. And actually, my wife's father was he was an engineer here, Canadian. He was an engineer here. He used to go.
I was looking up the Mitra name. It's a Persian. It's Iranian name.
No, it's actually Indian. It's Mitra, right?
Oh, really?
But it could have roots in that because Mitra is how they say it in Iran. Sometimes it's a first name. It's also I apprenticed with a guy named Metro Kozak, and he was telling me that Mitra is a form of Dimitri as well.
Oh, I see. So it's Indo-Iranian. Name of the Indo-Iranian divinity.
Really?
Yeah, because I meet a lot of Iranian people here, and they're like, "Oh, Roustem is like." Apparently, it's like really It's not actually surprising. It's not a popular name, but it's like a really well-known name of Iranian hero or something, legend, whatever.
Right.
But first time I heard that here.
Yeah. Well, my dad was Bengali, right? So he's from Bengal. So, and Mitra means friend. Yeah, at least in Bengali, anyway. Cool. All right. Well, thanks for coming and hanging out, and I'll probably edit this and have it out in probably a week or so, maybe sooner. Who knows? I'll let you know.
All right. Please cut out everything that I didn't say right.
Don't worry, I'll edit some things, and we'll cut out some of the dead air. All right, thanks, man.
Thank you, Tim. It was good talking to you.
You too. Talk to you later.
Good to see you too. It's been a long time.
You too. Yeah, we'll have to have. Can't wait to get back to Taco and NS North and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, we should. Someone should organize something like that. I feel right.
Well, I don't know if you know. Do you know Kyle? They're the NS coders. They have Swift Canada. They do a conference, and I think they're planning on doing. I think they just did a hack, like a weekend hack kind of thing. But last year they had Paul Hudson come, and he did a day-long session on the new stuff in Swift and all that kind of stuff. So it was kind of cool. And so they're at least trying to do something. I don't know what's happening with Taco, right? But other than the Slack, right?
Yeah, that would be great. It would be great just to see people in person after 2 years, 3 years.
Yeah.
All right.
Well, we can do. I went and had beer with some friends of mine up on the Danforth. There's a couple of bars there, and it was warmer, obviously, but we sat underneath the music hall. They had a table there. I think it's called Side Room or something like that, and it's owned by the same people, and they put a table for us under the marquee. So we're sitting on the sidewalk, and the first time we're having a beer in public. And my friend Marty, she was so happy to see us. She just kept hugging us all night long. And now we're all double vaxxed, and we can actually make contact. But that was
I feel better about it now, so I feel it should be easier.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, thanks, man. Bye.
Good night. Bye.